Hi guys! So I thought it was time to do an update on my Hobonichi Weeks setup since it's been a couple of months since the last one and a few things have changed. So the first thing that you'll see is that I'm still using the Core travel wallet as a cover and it's fantastic. The only thing is that last time I was using this light brown one and now I'm using a dark brown one. I love the light brown one, but I was tempted by the dark brown one and I got some money for my birthday, and so this is the one that I've been using for quite a while, but I might switch back to this one at some point. By the way, if you can hear snoring in the background, that's Tails. So I'm sorry about that. So yeah, this is fantastic. I really like it. It's perfect as a week's cover. Now, the first big change that you'll see is immediately upon opening it, shock horror, I have done something that I vowed that I would never do. I'm like the last person in the world who ever thought that they would be saying this, but I have turned my weeks into a wallet. You might recall in one of my videos on things I don't do with planners, I made the bold statement of saying that I'm incapable of using a planner as a wallet. And I thought that would be true forever. And then what happened was I had to get a new bag because I'm carrying around so much stuff. And I was trying to find a way of rationalizing, even though my new bag is bigger, I thought if there's any way that I could downsize something. So I was looking at my wallet and my Weeks, which has all of these perfect pockets because it's a travel wallet. And so I thought, maybe there's a way, let me just try it. So I ended up putting all of my cards that I use often in here. And then I put all of my, loyalty cards from shops, like if you like Cafe Nero, this type of card on the other side, along with my pen loop. And that worked out really well. And then I just put all of my university related things like library cards that had been in my wallet in my cousin, because that's my work planner. And I just put all of my coins in a coin purse, and I happened to have one that I was using for something else. And then I put cash in here, and it works out perfectly, and I'm really happy with it because it means that I could get rid of my wallet and I carry my Weeks with me everywhere anyway, so it isn't taking up any more space than it would have been otherwise. So I'm really happy with that, and I'm still completely shocked because I don't feel like a wallet/planner person, but apparently I am. So in here I have a photo of Panda, and then I have my Hobonichi stencil, and this I had last time. This is a Hobonichi Weeks notebook where I just keep my perpetual information like passwords and birthdays and stuff like that that can be transferred from year to year. So the next big change is the pen. Before I was using a friction pen in purple, and then I decided to try to cut out plastic and disposable like cartridges and things like that, which I've mentioned before. So I first switched to a pencil, and you'll see that there was a point when I was using a pencil in this. And I didn't really like the pencil because it just kind of made everything grey and it was a bit depressing. And then I decided to start trying fountain pens and quickly became a fountain pen junkie, and now I have a whole bunch of fountain pens. So this is a Pilot Metropolitan and I love it. So this is the purple retro pop fine nib. It seems I can only use the fine nib because with the medium nib everything smears. I did try that first, but I love this, and it has purple ink in it, as you will see. So I'm very happy with this pen situation here. I was a bit worried because for years, I haven't used a pen that wasn't erasable, and I kind of thought that would be an insurmountable challenge. Also, I was scared of fountain pens because they seemed very intimidating to me. I'd never used one. But the Pilot Metropolitan is just really easy, and also I'm lucky because James has used fountain pens before, and so he instructed me on like how to fill them up and stuff like that. And not being able to erase hasn't been a problem really. So this is all still the same, except that now that I'm using a fountain pen, I haven't been using this because I used to use this for like urgent tasks, and it's kind of like a dashboard. So I would just write down like things that I had to buy or, remember to do forthwith, and then I would erase them. And now I can't erase them. So I just actually got out of the habit of using this. So I'm not sure if I'll keep this here. It's here for now because I like it and it's happy, but I'm not actually using it at the moment. So I'll decide if I keep not using it, then I think I'll take it out. And I'm just crossing off the months with it was friction highlighters. So I was using friction highlighters for everything, as you know, for not really color coding in most cases, but just for crossing off completed tasks. And then when they ran out, in sort of at the same time with trying to go zero waste and cut out plastic, somebody very kindly recommended these eco highlighters, which are awesome. They're colored pencils and they're like neon, so you can use them like highlighters, but they're totally eco-friendly, sustainable, etc. And they're really, really nice. And I'll put the link down below of the shop that they come from so that you can order them online. And so I switched over. So for January and February, I've been using these instead. But as you can see, they look like highlighters. So that's really cool. Then last time I showed this. This starts in January, so when I filmed the last video in December, it hadn't actually started yet, and I was writing in just a few tracking things like, you know, sleep and stuff like that. I was writing them in up here, and since then I have had the joy of being able to start writing them down here where they're meant to be, and that works really well, and I like it. There's not a huge amount of room, but you don't need it. I'm just using codes for things. So that was one thing. Then the next thing, which I think is different, is these page markers. So I got these from Paper Chase, and they come in a pack, and I love them. They're great. They're kind of rose gold. And it's very hard, if you're used to Tomoe River paper, you know that it's very difficult finding a metal bookmark that isn't too heavy for the paper, because usually they just weigh down the paper. And this is kind of designed for like a normal sheet of paper, like, you know, 80 to 120 GSM, whereas Tomoe River paper I think is 50 GSM, so it's too thin for most of them, and it is a bit too thin for this. So what I've been doing is clipping it to this yearly spread and then clipping it to the current month, and that makes it about the right weight, if you see what I mean. And also it has the added benefit that I can just switch back and forth, because these are the 2 pages that I need to access at the beginning. So that's been working really well, and I like this because it's permanent. Before I was using those plastic bookmarks with the dogs on them, the pictures of dogs that come from the Hobonichi website, and I really like those, but because they're plastic, they're like stickers effectively. They have, you know, sticky on the back. I knew that eventually they were going to stop sticking and then I would have to find an alternative. So when I saw these, I just thought I'll do it now. So let's just go back here. I'll show you January and February. So for January, I was still using my friction highlighters, but they were getting fainter and fainter. As you can see, this is December. They were still pretty bright, and then January they kind of start to fade. So I was color coding here, and I mentioned this in the last video. I was using purple for expenses or things that I buy so that I could monitor that, and then pink for videos, yellow for exercise, and orange for water tracking. And then at the bottom here, I would write down orders. So the orders would go under here in terms of how much money I spent on them, because I was trying to monitor that. But then I would write them down here so that I could keep track of how long how long I'd been waiting for them and how long since they'd shipped and stuff like that, because it was easier to find them here than in the middle of the month, because I tried that at first and that didn't work, so it just seemed to be easier to put them down here. And then I would just highlight them after they'd come through, and I didn't have to worry about them anymore, and I wasn't using any specific color for this. So I did this all throughout January, and then in February, that was when these came, the eco highlighters, and so I switched to them. And then I kind of had an issue because around the same time I switched to pencil, and as I mentioned in another video, the pencil doesn't work with these. If you try to highlight with these over pencil, the whole thing just turns into a big smudge. I think just because it's like pencil on pencil and the pencil just gets blurred together. So that was kind of a shame, because I really liked using these. And then when I switched to fountain pen, I tried it again, and I don't know if it was just that the ink seemed dry, but can see here that there is some smudging. So I thought I'll just forget it, and I'm just going to go monochrome and just write in fountain pen. And so for the second half of February, everything is just written in fountain pen. And that doesn't bother me. I like the way it looks. It's very, very minimalist. It's not at all decorated. There's no color, and I don't know if in the long term I'm going to be happy about that or not, but for now it's okay. The main problem with February is that it irks me having it half be colored and half just purple, but it's not February anymore, so I don't really have to look at it. And I was just doing the same thing here, putting the orders at the bottom and tracking them. And then you can see here right at the bottom I was using pencil, and for that I just crossed them out when they came because I didn't have the color coding anymore. And this is the current month. So I don't know, do you think that this looks sad, or like does it look pleasingly minimalist? I'm not sure. I really can't decide. I have to say I really enjoyed it when it was like bright and colorful. That was fun. This is very, plain and straightforward, and there are no colors, and I'm not sure how I feel about that, because I liked it better with the colors. But then on the other hand, this is very simple because now I only need one pen, whereas before I had the pen and then I also had a bag of highlighters, and I had to carry them around in my bag as well, which is obviously something that I'm trying to streamline. And then I had to get them out. If I ever wanted to tick something off, I would have to mark it with the highlighter, so it's like an extra step rather than just getting out the weeks and having everything I need right here. So in terms of functionality, it's easier like this, but in terms of aesthetics, I liked it better when it was all happy and colorful. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. An easy solution to that would be to put some stickers in. And I've mentioned before I didn't really want to put stickers in the weeks because I was afraid of it getting really bulky. But if I use like the Asian diary stickers, which are really flat, and I have a ton of them, so I have to use them at some point anyway, I could just put them on the days where nothing has happened, or, put a small one on, and that would kind of take care of the happy, cheerful issue. So I'll think about it. I'm not sure for now. And the other thing is that there's no color coding now. So before I was using this as a combination of tracking and scheduling. So scheduling YouTube videos and then color coding them when they were done, but also tracking water intake and exercise. And now the water intake and the exercise don't have their own colors. The water intake is kind of self-explanatory because it's just X's. So I just use the boxes to cross off how many like half liters or cups. But that actually got confusing as well because I've been like drinking mostly tea and drinking it from different cup sizes. So there's really no standard way of indicating what a box meant. And it got too confusing and I finally just gave up. So I'm not actually water tracking at the moment. And I don't know if that's a bad thing or not. I'm not sure how much it matters. So the water tracking is gone and now it's just basically exercise. So I just put exercise at the bottom and it's not hard to find it. So it's not really an issue not having the color coding. And then at the bottom here, I still put the orders and I just put the day that I ordered it, the day that it shipped, and then the day that it arrived. And being a planner addict, obviously I won't forget about my orders because I'm always really keen for them to come. So if something hasn't come, I'll keep checking and thinking, how long has that been? And, if the tracking isn't working or something, I'll be like, do I have to email anybody? So that's working fine. Yeah, so in terms of how this works without the colors, it's really fine. At least for now, I'm not finding it difficult to locate things on the monthly spread. It's just, I'm not sure whether it's happy enough. So that's the monthly spread. I don't do forward planning or anything on this. I'm just using this for tracking, and that's because I use the weeks for, like, I put everything in the weeks. So if there's something like this is a dentist appointment in June, I just put it in there and I'll check the weeks if I have to. I don't find it a problem not having forward planning in the months for some reason. So in terms of the weeks, there have been quite a few changes here. So I think the last time I showed it was sometime around here, and I was using, obviously I still had the highlighters, so I was crossing off everything that was completed with the highlighter, and I really liked that. So I do kind of miss that. And I had on the left hand, I had appointments, so timed appointments, and then I was drawing a line across each, like sort of continuing on this line onto this side, so that I had kind of like a long horizontal strip for each day, and this side was appointments and this side was tasks. And I think maybe the last one that I showed in the last video was this one, where all I was doing was that, and then I had one checkbox here on the left. And then the next week I decided that I really wasn't making enough use of the space, and sometimes I would run out of room in the day, if you see what I mean, and I would have to put some more things over on the right side. So I decided instead that I would still keep the horizontal line, but then make an extra set of checkboxes. So I would have two columns, because really I didn't need to have like giant long spaces here. It was fine having 2 columns. And so I started doing that. So I had like all of these boxes per day, because that was Monday. So I had like, I think there are 6 boxes here. So I had 12 to-dos per day, which was great. That was enough. And you can see that sometimes I didn't use all of them. So I had some empty space in the week. And then some of them, like here, this was Thursday, I ran out of room here for to-dos. So I used up all of the 12. Because what I like to do sometimes is, like, this might seem unnecessary, but sometimes I just get really stressed out, particularly in the evening when I feel like I have like tons of things to do. And so I just write them all down, even if they're really simple, like make dinner, cycle, shower, feed tails, stuff like that. And then once it's all listed, then I feel like, okay, now I know what I have to do. And so I'll just do that. And obviously that can take up quite a lot of room. Whereas if I'm not feeling so stressed, I don't need to write down all of those things. So it just kind of depends on how I feel on the day. And so it was kind of unbalanced, because having it divided into these days in a way makes sense, but then in a way it was kind of like I felt like it wasn't a very efficient use of space, because on some days I would run out, and then other days would be left empty. So what I started doing after a while here is just making the 2 check columns and not dividing them into days, because my reasoning was, you can see that in a lot of these left-hand sides that are for appointments, I would have empty space because I don't really have that many appointments. Particularly because my planners are divided into work and personal, and this is just personal stuff. So it's not like I have tons of dentist appointments and doctor's appointments and a lot of vet appointments, but that's pretty much it. So in a way, like, this was kind of being underutilized. And so I decided that what I could do is, instead of having these divided into days, I could just make these 2 checklists for tasks. And these are like kind of like a running list, like a kind of like a bullet journal, but a really basic one because I'm not using all the symbols, but just like a running task list that just have to get done sometime during the week, but it doesn't matter when. And then here, instead of just writing down appointments and, timed events, I could also write down to-dos that were specific to a day. So like, for example, Hoover or vacuum. This is something that I really wanted to do on the Friday. So instead of putting it here, I put it here, even though it's not an event, because I wanted it to happen on that day. And so I felt like that was a sort of more efficient use of space, because as you can see, I was just writing down tasks here, not in any particular order. These are just the things that I had to do. Sometimes they would be things that had to get done on a particular day, but those would only be the type of things that I just mentioned. Like in the evening, if I knew I had to we had to get dinner done and do this and do this and do this, I would just write them down and see that I had to do them all that evening and just cross them off one by one. And then the next day they wouldn't be relevant anymore. So I was kind of using it like that, where this is for timed things, but not necessarily events. And this is just for ongoing to-dos and like things that I had to buy and stuff like that. So that was working quite well. And I did that for a while. And sometimes I could, because as you can see, I ended up with a lot of extra room doing it like that. So I could sometimes use this, like this was for calculating, this was something, I can't remember, some expense thing that I was calculating. And I was not making a distinction between events and tasks on the left-hand side. I was just using a circle from the Hobonichi stencil for all of them. I guess a sensible thing to do would be to use circles for the appointments and boxes for the tasks, because then the task would correspond to this. But for some reason I didn't do it like that. And I carried on like that. I guess another sensible thing to do would be maybe to divide this in half and to put the appointments on the left and like the time specific tasks on the right of the left hand page. But I didn't do that either, and it hasn't been a problem because it's a small book. It's not hard to find things. So then at some point I decided that it would make sense to stop using the checkboxes, because I thought I don't really need the checkboxes. What are they for? I'm highlighting things that are done, so I don't need the checkboxes. And instead I thought that it would make more sense to divide this into tasks on the one side and things to buy on the other side, so that I could just look at this side and know like this is things that I have to remember to buy, either from like the shop or from Amazon or somewhere. So I put just a line down this side and was using it like that for a while, and then still using this for appointments and timed tasks. And so I did that for a while. You can see here that the highlighters are starting to fade. It was very, very sad. And then this is where I first started using pencil. And so this is kind of a mix of friction, the last of the friction pen, and then the pencil. So when I switched over to pencil, I stopped highlighting things when they were done. And this was still the same. So the same system where this was tasks and this was things to buy. And this was like mostly just timed tasks that happen on a particular day. Then, this might be harder to see because it's in pencil. Oh no, you can see it. Then I realized, what am I doing drawing this line here when there's already a line printed in the weeks? Like, why don't I use that line? Because things to buy, generally it's just like 1 or 2 words. It's quite short, whereas tasks are longer. So I was actually, you can see that this is the line that is printed in the weeks, and this is the line I was drawing. So I was like, why am I drawing my own line when they've already got a line that I could just use and just reverse them and put things to buy here and tasks on the rest of the page? So that's what I started doing here. And that was great because then there was absolutely no setting up to do anymore. So I just used their line, which I liked because I always like it when you can use a sort of built-in feature that the planner has without having to do it yourself. And it was sort of bugging me that I couldn't figure out a way to use their line. So now I get to use their line. So this is things to buy, and that there's enough space for that because it's like, you know, small individual words. And then this is tasks, and that was working out really well. But you can see that it's all very gray, and that was just kind of making me sad. And then because I didn't have the highlighters to color in, I was coloring in each appointment or time task with a different highlighter and then with a different colored pencil. So like even before I did them, I would just color them in just, you know, I don't know, to add a bit of color. And then what I started doing instead when I had the pencil is I would draw the circle with the stencil and leave it blank, and then when I completed the task I would fill it in with the same color pencil. So you can see that these are all dark, and that's because I've done these things. So I started doing that there, and then I carried on this week, but this week the fountain pen arrived, and so I've actually got a mix. I was going to wait for the next week, but then I realized that it didn't really matter because I had some friction pen already written in. Like I had a few appointments that were written in, you know, that I'd written in before with the friction pen. So I thought it's already going to be a mess. So there's no point waiting for like a clean week to start the new week. I might as well just start it now. So this is where I started using the fountain pen. And at first I tried bringing back the highlighter and highlighting this completed task. And then I just thought, I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to use the fountain pen like I was using the colored pencil, and just cross things off when they're done. So that was what I did here. These are all things that have been crossed off or migrated over to the next week. And then I'm just using these 3 lines at the bottom for notes, basically. So like something I had to look up, some dimensions of something, like a password, temporary password for something. So it's quite nice just having this little bit of note paper here. And then the next week was all fountain pen and a bit of friction, but the friction is purple as well, so you can't really see the difference. And I started doing the same thing with the fountain pen. So I would just draw an empty circle, and then when the task had been completed or the appointment had happened or was cancelled and was therefore no longer relevant, I would just color it in. So you can see you have these like big purple dots. And this is for things to buy, and this is for tasks that are non-time specific. And I was just crossing them off. So I kind of like this. I like having the purple dot. It's not as nice as having all the different colors, but it's better than gray, I felt. But I kind of didn't like how it was sort of incongruous, how on the one side I was using like this colored in circle to mark that the task was done, which is quite effective somehow. I think seeing this, your brain is like, okay, I don't have to do that anymore. So I didn't have to cross these off because this was like somehow quite a big flag. For me, it was like more of a signal that the task is completed than ticking the box would be, because like somehow my brain doesn't register that. But on this side, I was crossing things off. So I kind of felt like it was asymmetrical. So this week I started writing the task one box over. So I'd leave a blank box so that I could tick it off. But then that didn't, if you see, but then that didn't really work. So I started crossing things off as well. And then that just got kind of confusing. So then I thought maybe I should do the same thing on this side so that they both have a tick box. But I've never really worked very well with the tick box system. So I'm thinking of maybe switching this system and using it over here as well, so that like I make a circle and then circle it when, color in the circle when it's done, so that this side would look like this side, if you see what I mean, because that seems like a little bit happier to me. It does use up more ink, but I don't know in the scheme of things whether that really matters. So this is what it looks like at the moment. So I'm not entirely happy with this because I love using the fountain pen and I really, really like the purple ink, but I do kind of miss, like when I go back a couple of months and see how, in the glory days when the highlighters were working well, that just looks nice and happy. So I'm not sure if the same effect could be achieved by like putting in some stickers afterwards, or if it doesn't really matter, because the main purpose of this is just to keep track of things to do. But it's always nice when it makes you happy and it looks pretty and is, you enjoy filling it in. So that's the calendar part, the diary, and I have to decide what to do about that. I'm definitely going to keep using the fountain pen because I'm really enjoying that, but I'm not sure about the whole ticking things off system. And I like using this for things to buy and this for things to do. That works out really well, and it's kind of built in, like perfect for that anyway, so that's good. But I'll see in the next video, I'll let you know what I've decided to do about that. And then I'm using the rest of this as I was before, except that now I don't have the highlighter, so I'm not highlighting the things that are completed. But I think that's okay because I was really just doing that for fun. So now I'm like, with videos that I've reverted back to a checkbox system. And then notes for videos, I was highlighting the ones that I'd completed, and now I'm not, but that's okay. And then I've got things to buy that are more like kind of long-term things that I really want to think about. This is things that I have to buy, like we needed a bucket to put our compost in, and or like groceries, that type of thing. Whereas this is more things like a wish list. So I put them here, or at least that was the plan. It's kind of gone downhill in the last few weeks, but that I would like write things down here and then think about them and then come back to them and then sort of like buy them when I was really sure that I needed them. So that's how I was using that. And then this is just for random notes, and I have been using that like that. And I think it doesn't really matter that I'm not highlighting them, but maybe I will go back to that. I'm not sure. So that's it. That is how I'm currently using my week. So I'm really, really happy with the weeks. I think it is like definitely my dream personal planner, and I really love using it as a wallet, and I love the fountain pen. So the only thing I'm not sure about is like the whole aesthetics of it and the tick box system and stuff like that. So I'm going to keep working on that, and I will update you when I find a solution. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I am really, really grateful to you for watching as always. Thank you so much, and I'll be back again soon with another video. Bye.